In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create a type of generative art that's going to be 3D box art. So we're going to start by putting in rect mode center into our function setup, and then we're going to make a few variables. We'll make a variable for x at 500, y at the same value, and then we're going to make two more for dx and dy, setting those ones equal to random 50, 950. And that'll choose a random number between 50 and 950. And this is going to help with establishing some basically random boundaries. So if you've done that generative art before, this will make a little bit of sense to you. We're going to start by making one rectangle at x, y, and then making it 50 by 50. Then what we're going to say, if x is greater than the random dx value that the computer assigns, then we want x to equal x minus 1. However, if x happens to be less than the random dx number, then what we want to happen is we want x to equal x plus 1. So it's basically assigning a random direction to it based on whether 500 is greater than or less than the random number the computer chooses. So if I were to rerun this over and over and over again, it would always go different directions. So to make it go diagonal, I'm going to add in a line for y as well. So I'm going to say if y is greater than dy, then I want y to equal y minus 1. But if y is less than dy, the random number chosen by the computer, then I want it to grow by 1. And I'll show you what I mean about assigning random. So if I keep clicking clear canvas, it's always going to go a slightly different direction. There we go. So it's going into all different diagonals based on those random numbers that the computer is assigning. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to make it so that the distance between x, y, dx, and dy are checked. So we're going to do if dist, and then in parentheses, x, y, dx, dy is less than 5. Then what I want to happen is I want a new random dx and new random dy. And this is what's going to allow it to not really run off the canvas. It's going to say, okay, if it's approaching that random number that you chose, then what I want to happen is I want a new random value to be chosen, and then the cycle will start over again. It'll go a different direction based on what that random number was that was chosen. All right, so for this actual animation, we're actually going to use 4 rectangles. So it's going to be like all 4 come out from 4 different angles. So I'm just going to copy and paste the rectangle code, and I'm going to change the first one, or the second one actually. First one can stay as it is. Second one's going to be 1,000 minus x. And then the third one's going to be 1,000 minus y. And finally, the fourth one will be 1,000 minus x and 1,000 minus y. And this will make it so that they all start from the center and kind of like blossom out into different directions. All right. So now we have them moving around the screen, and they're already making like kind of a pattern on the screen that looks cool. But what we're going to do is add some color in. So first thing that I want to do is add in a stroke weight and a fill to all the rectangles, and then I'll start dealing with the variables for the colors. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to do stroke weight. In parentheses, I'll put 3. Right underneath that, I'm going to do a fill of 255, 10, which will kind of give it this cool gradient color, but it's still just black and white. So to add in the actual color, we're going to need to make 6 new variables. So we'll make a variable for r, setting it equal to random, and then in parentheses 200, so a random number up to 200. And I'm just going to copy that and do the same thing for g and b. Our computer's automatically set to use RGB values for the colors. That's what we always have been using. So we're just going to keep going with that. And then I'm going to make a new variable for R2, setting that equal to random in parentheses 1, 3, and that's what's going to change our color basically. So that's what's going to allow us to have a color changing box. So I'm going to do the same thing for G2 and B2. All right, so now I'm going to go down, and this is where I need to add in some math. So I'm going to basically say R equals R plus R2. So I want R to grow by a factor of R2, which is always going to be a random number chosen between 1 and 3. And R is always going to be a random number up to 200. So I'll do the same thing for R, G, and B. All right. So the next thing that I need to do is have some kind of conditional statement in there to check if R gets too big or too small, what do I want to happen? So if R happens to be less than 0, or, and that or sign is just made by pressing Shift and the key right underneath your backspace. So, or R is greater than 255, I just want R to go in the negative direction. So if it's getting too big, I want it to get smaller. If it's getting too small, I want it to get bigger. And I'm going to do this exact same thing for G and B. And I'm just going to copy and paste, making sure that I change every single one of those R's to the letter that I need. Copying and pasting in a project like this will save you a lot of time and effort. It's really useful as long as you double check everything that you did and make sure that it's all right. All right, so that all looks good. So now I'm going to go up and I'm going to apply a stroke of R, comma G, comma B to my squares. All right, and now it's going to, every time it loads, it's going to create a unique box art pattern on the canvas. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all of our newest videos.